that Diddy trying to get at Bieber the way he was trying to get at Bieber was looking a little predatory. And then Usher came in and discovered it and managed him and got custody of him and promised to look after him. And then he sent him to the diddler.
Well, this is absolutely cooked. Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And hell this video is indeed, my friends. We are well and truly on the hell gondola. I honestly can't tell you how many videos I had to watch in order to make this video, and frankly, I'm not sure I could have done it without these little magic mind bottles. Which I've mentioned before in previous videos, but I genuinely have to say that they make it easier for me to concentrate and focus when I'm crying inside. I genuinely love this stuff, so for those of you who are interested, I will link it in the description box, and you can also use my code SydneyWatson20 for 20% off your order. Also, this video will probably be demonetized because of the subject matter, so consider heading over to my company, Lions Tea Exchange, and picking up yourself a little box of tea or a wooden gift box or something, because it helps the channel and I like making you all very happy with yummy drinks. I will also link this in the description box. Now, I've made no secret of the fact that I am not interested whatsoever at all in what celebrities are doing really at any given time. But whenever information comes out about young people being mistreated in either the acting industry or the music industry, then I start to care. Because it makes me really angry. For those of you who don't know, a well-known rapper and producer called Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, P. Diddy, Love, Puff Daddy, and about 400 other stupid names, was recently arrested on accusations of sex trafficking and racketeering. Because why not? As it turns out, Combs was involved in some depraved activities, such as group relations, wink wink, nudge nudge, you guys know what that means, and what can be described as freak-offs. Many of these events also involved other celebrities and people involved in the music industry. You guys might have also seen the news that Combs was found with 1,000 bottles of baby oil, which I don't know why, but I just find that really funny. I guess he wanted to be extra slippery. I don't know. Anyway, because Combs has been a mover and shaker in the music industry for literally decades, he's come into contact with his fair share of very, very young pop stars. And rappers, and other kinds of musicians too. One of those musicians is none other than Justin Bieber, who, since his early teenage years, has had a very, very hard time, and over the last few years in particular, has owned up to his prolific substance abuse to cope with his time in the industry. And since all of the Combs news has come to light, people have been dragging up previous clips of the two together, including one where Combs says that he's going to have 48 hours with the team to hang out and do things they can't disclose.
Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream.
As well as other clips where Bieber looks incredibly uncomfortable interacting with him. Not to mention the supercuts of people groping Bieber when he was 14 and 15 years old, which unfortunately we'll come back to. Even some news outlets are reporting presently that Bieber is struggling with the Combs arrests and the many public admissions of his disgusting behavior. I think many people have historically looked at Justin Bieber as a spoiled rich kid with absolutely no regard for himself or for other people. But as time has worn on, it's become increasingly clear that he was yet another young person who was just trying to survive in an industry and around people who were both exploiting him and hurting him when he was a minor. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the victimization of Justin Bieber and all of the awful things that go along with that. And of course, all of my regular disclaimers here. This video is by no means exhaustive. There are so many components to not only Sean Combs and all the things that he did, but also to this Justin Bieber side of things as well. We won't get to all of them in this video because it would be, you know, like 1,000 years long. So on that note, and before you once again board my hell gondola and together we cuddle up and coast in these waters of sadness and weirdness and what the hell is happening, let's hear from today's sponsor, Fume. Breathing is an activity that I really enjoy.
So much so that I go outside to do it.
But it's hard to enjoy breathing if you're someone who pollutes your lungs with toxins and chemicals. Your heart is also having a bad time. I need you to stop this.
My
But if stopping your bad habit is a challenge for you, let me introduce you to Fume. Fume is this nifty, award-winning flavored air device that is useful in stopping any hand-to-mouth habit. It is not a vape, has no heating components or batteries, and isn't sending gross chemicals into your bloodstream. You're welcome. And it's simple to use. All you have to do is pick the flavored core that you like best, pop it into your Fume, and enjoy breathing tasty flavored air. And best of all, Fume has been busy expanding their entire range, with flavors like cinnamon hearts, black licorice, and spearmint ice. And new devices like this beautiful Solano Fume, this magnetic base so you can store your Fume when you're not using it, and of course these little mouthpiece toppers for a softer sensory feel. They're even chewable and reusable. So if you too want to make your heart very happy, then click the link in the description or go to tryfume.com or scan the QR code on screen. And don't forget to use code Sydney to get your free Fume topper when you order a journey pack. Around 2013, 19-year-old Justin Bieber had started to go off the rails. In January, a photo of the pop star smoking some oregano had been leaked to the press and seemingly signaled the beginning of his descent into alcohol, drugs, and depression. By the same time the following year, Bieber's former housekeeper, Tatiana Wozniak, I have no idea how to say this, told the Sunday People that the drug use taking place at the Bieber residence was staggering. She described her fear that the pop star would become the next Michael Jackson and die young and alone from an overdose. She described Bieber as a zombie, saying he looked pale, frail, and sick. During the interview, Wozniak, I know I'm saying this wrong, I'm sorry guys, noted several times the singer was so high he could barely walk or talk. Although Bieber's drug use was typically chalked up to his own choices, his former housekeeper suggested that Bieber wasn't only doing this to himself, but being drugged and taken advantage of by those around him. She even tried reaching out to Bieber's mother and manager, Scooter Braun, but nobody lifted a finger to do anything. Man, it's honestly a sad time when your housekeeper has to call your parents and ask them to come and, like, parent. No shade to Justin's mom or anything, but yeesh. This is why I believe in parenting licenses. Things seem to go on like this for some time. Bieber's descent into drugs and alcohol was swift, and soon he was getting arrested and constantly in the papers and press for his inappropriate, outrageous, and dangerous behavior. This was viewed at the time as yet another child star acting out and going mad. But as we now know, the vast majority of these young people were subjected to horrific things in their formative years, often at the hands of adults in the industry who were supposed to protect them, but in actuality were the very people victimizing them. So the question here becomes, why would Justin Bieber be any different? Spoiler alert! He's not. Given that he was discovered in 2008 at around 13 years old, and almost from the outset was plunged into chaos and constantly subjected to and surrounded by age-inappropriate behavior. Since Sean Combs was arrested and since more information about his depraved behavior has come to light, people's minds immediately went to Justin Bieber, wondering what might have happened to him as a boy, not only at the hands of Combs or in his presence, but at the hands of the many, many people orbiting Bieber. At this stage, the Sean Combs / Justin Bieber revelations were mostly hearsay and actually continue to be mostly hearsay, coming from former security guards, former assistants, and Combs's former girlfriend, who's also deceased. Remember this because we'll come back to it in a little bit. But what we do know for certain is that since Justin Bieber has appeared on the scene, he has been subjected to blatant and unwanted harassment and assault by lots of different people in the industry. And it seems that it's taken over a decade for people to realize just how disgusting some of this behavior towards this pop star actually was. I mean, who could have possibly predicted that? In 2009, when he was around 15 years old, Bieber was asked sexually charged questions on 2 separate radio shows. The host of Mojo in the Morning, Shannon Murphy, asked the teenager if his parents had given him the sex talk yet, before asking if he'd give her the sex talk. Bieber replied that he felt uncomfortable.
You guys never gave me the sex talk. Okay. So why don't you give me the sex talk?
I feel uncomfortable right now.
Oh.
Why do you want to know the sex talk from a 15-year-old boy? That's pretty weird.
It's okay, Justin. The rest of us are also uncomfortable listening to this. Ugh. During the other radio show, Bieber was asked if he liked French girls. When he replied yes, the host says, "Why? Because they have big boobs?" He adds, "Do you know how to French kiss?" Afterwards, Bieber said, "They were asking some really weird questions. I'm only 15 and my mum was like right there." It was remarkably challenging to find a good quality version of this original clip, so you guys are just gonna have to take my word for it. Yes, I'm doing a trust me bro, but actually, please trust me, bruh. During his 2011 appearance on The Talk, Bieber told Leah Remini no several times before she stopped trying to touch him. She also asked him if he'd rather perform a full song on stage while naked or drink a cup of blended worms. What is this? This was especially weird considering how many children were behind her in the audience. Again, Bieber looks extremely uncomfortable with this line of questioning. Also, why are people asking this stuff of a young teenage man? I don't get it. In the same year, another clip popped off that showed James Corden trying to touch Bieber's face and hair, leaning in close to him to tell him how good he smells.
Can I say this? Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. Like that was bad.
Yeah.
Wow, look at your eyes. What music are you listening to at the moment, Justin?
A year later, actress Jenna McCarthy went viral in a bad way for grabbing Bieber around the neck and kissing him. He pulls himself away and announced that he felt violated.
I feel violated right now.
This situation was especially icky given that later on McCarthy doubled down, saying that it was a little cougar scary, but I took the opportunity in the window, considering I'll never get to do it again, and kind of molested him.
I did grab his butt. I'm single, but I think that's cougar rape.
Ugh. What is going on here? Maybe I'm not the target audience, but I don't think this is all that funny. I really do yearn for the asteroid. Finally, another notable clip showed Katy Perry grabbing Bieber's behind and mouthing to the camera, "Sorry, Selena," Bieber's girlfriend at the time. These are, of course, not the only examples of the young man being groped, grabbed, and asked weird sexual things and generally harassed by adults, but it certainly paints the picture of what people were prepared to do to a 15-year-old boy out in public. The sad thing to me is that in a handful of these situations, Bieber tried to play along. The Mojo in the Morning host, for example, Shannon Murphy, who asked Bieber about the sex talk, said that he was flirting with her and was touching her himself. Similarly, he joked with Katy Perry after she grabbed him, saying that they could do that forever if she wanted. People have assumed that Bieber's responses to these situations means that he was okay with what was happening to him, but I'd argue that his introduction to physical touch and boundaries were extremely skewed based on how young he was when he became a pop star. Not to mention, apparently, all the people around him were modeling this behavior. It's not really super surprising that he took part if this is what he'd come to expect. Ah, haha, I'm glad you asked. We do in fact have a name for this. It's called grooming. It's kind of funny because I can anticipate some of the comments that I'm going to get with relation to this part of the video, because every time I talk about adults being really creepy towards teenagers and young people and minors, there's this cohort of humans who are like, stop infantilizing these teenagers, like they're old enough to do whatever. And, you know, maybe there's an argument to be made there about some issues, but I don't think this is one of them. And I don't think it's infantilizing them to say, hey, adults, don't be creepy. Stop being creepy. I will die on this hill. Stop being creepy towards 14 and 15-year-old minors. It's just, it's not okay. Come here. Can I touch your butt? Yes, but it's okay. Murphy, they're light bulbs. They're not, no, stop looking at them. They're light bulbs. They're light bulbs. My dog thinks that the light bulbs on the ceiling that he can see, he thinks that they're tennis balls or baseballs. It's a whole problem. That's a whole problem, my dog. There's something wrong with him. Anyway, with all of this in mind, it's really not that hard to assume that things were much worse behind the scenes. We have so many additional and verified stories that are similar to point to, so I think that it's fair that we can make an educated assumption and judgment here. Bieber has said in interviews as an adult that his drug use was a form of escapism and a way to cope with his life. His wife Haley, in his YouTube original series Seasons, describes it as self-medication to numb himself. This sentiment seemingly showed up too in his 2021 song Lonely, which people have been pointing to recently as another indication that the singer was struggling for a very long time. The lyrics describe how alone he felt, despite the money and fame, and how everyone saw him sick and didn't care or help. More recently, as of 2023, news outlets reported that Bieber was hinting at quitting the music industry to continue to focus on his mental and emotional health and his marriage. This isn't too much of a revelation, given that in one particularly notable video, Bieber also cries while discussing wanting to protect fellow singer Billie Eilish from his same experiences in the music industry. Eilish rose to superstardom at a very early age as well.
I'm tearing up thinking about it, just with the Kobe situation, you know? I just wanted to be a good example, and it was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, you know, telling me they love me and, you know, just turn their back on you in a second. So if she ever needs me, I'm gonna be here for her, but yeah, just protecting those moments, because people take for granted encounters, and I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. Yeah, if she ever needs me, I'm just a call away.
Even at this time, people wondered to what specifically Bieber was referring, especially when he said he doesn't want anyone else to go through what he went through. With all of this in mind, it's really not all that surprising that people have started to make assumptions about the relationship between Sean Combs and Justin Bieber. I don't know what it is about this man, but I find him extremely creepy looking. Like, why are you here? Who invited you? He dead set looks like that weird neighbor who like wanders over to your house party and then stands in the corner of the room making all your female guests feel uncomfortable. Blech. While Bieber has never come out and explicitly confirmed any abuse, there still exists a lot of footage showing his uncomfortable interactions with Combs that have caused a whirlwind of speculation about what transpired between the pair. Such as this early video where Combs asks Bieber why they don't hang out like they used to. The teen suddenly becomes very nervous and can't articulate himself.
Starting to act different, huh? You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, you know, through all my, partners and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But you never really got my number, so.
Apparently, according to some people in the industry, and I read this a couple times, the reason why this interaction is so awkward is because some people in Justin's team were going to extreme lengths to keep him and Combs apart and not like let them interact. And, obviously for good reason. Now we know. If that's true, I'm actually really, really glad that someone or maybe multiple people stepped up to the plate to actually try to protect this kid who, just to remind you all, is still a kid. Beyond that, there are clips online that show Combs giving Bieber alcohol as a young boy, insinuating that they will get up to mischief together in a 48-hour period, and comments from his former staff that suggest Combs was exposing Bieber to inappropriate things and doing inappropriate things with him. Again, this is not super hard to believe given the mountain of evidence about Combs and his freak-off parties and the stories about him creating inappropriate tapes, passing around young men, and generally behaving depraved. I think it's important to remember as well that this was not the first time Combs had taken a young musician under his wing. Similarly to Bieber, the rapper Usher was discovered at the age of 13 and at around 14 or 15 went to live with Combs in New York. In 2016, during his appearance on Howard Stern's radio show, Usher confirmed that he'd been exposed to some questionable things while living with Combs. I say questionable, but it's much worse than that. While he didn't go into detail, he described what he saw as wild and crazy.
Sending you
New
over
York
to something
City.
called Puffy Flavor Camp.
There you go.
To learn
Flavor Camp?
Yeah,
Flavor
that's what it
Camp.
was called. And you're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's going
In the 90s, do you understand what that's like?
Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I
Come
mean,
on.
but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you
I
seeing?
went there to see the lifestyle,
Right.
And I saw it, and it was, but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild. It was,
So
it was
nobody
crazy.
tried to, some woman didn't come along.
I ain't
and
say that.
Okay.
I didn't
But
say
you
that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place, and I didn't necessarily understand it.
Usher went on to say that if he had a son in a similar situation, he wouldn't allow his child to be exposed to the same things he was.
You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy camp?
Hell no.
Ironically, Usher has described Justin Bieber as something of a son to him, and yet he is the very person who reportedly introduced Sean Combs to the pop star in the first place. Almost like history was repeating itself. One person who has been extremely vocal about the interactions between Combs and Bieber is the R&B singer Jaguar Wright. I also read somewhere that she was Combs' assistant at one time, but I'm actually not sure how true that is, so, there's that. And it's also worth noting that there are a lot of people who think she's just downright nuts, as she's made a lot of claims about other people, so, take what's being said here with a grain of salt. Anyway, Wright has made several heavy allegations about Combs and Bieber's activities. One clip that has been circulating shows Bieber with Combs' industry friends Trey Songz and Odell Beckham Jr. Beyond it being extremely obvious that Bieber is high on some sort of substance here, it's really hard to tell what precisely is going on. Wright, however, said she believes that Bieber was performing an adult act on one of the men. In the video, she describes how his mouth is wet and how he's at a much lower level than the other two, describing one of them as the lookout. Her implication here is that Bieber is acting at Combs' instruction. In another video, she comes down extremely hard on Usher for introducing Bieber to Combs in the first place, suggesting that Usher had experienced some horrific things and wanted to replace himself with another boy. That boy was Bieber.
Actually, someone made reference to the fact that Diddy trying to get at Bieber the way he was trying to get at Bieber was looking a little predatory. And then Usher came in and discovered it and managed him and got custody of him and promised to look after him. And then he sent him to the diddler.
I know it's not funny because of the nature of all of this, but describing Sean Combs like this makes him sound like a Batman villain.
And then he sent him to the diddler.
I mean, I'm about it. The guy's a monster. Even if Jaguar Wright turns out to be a complete Looney Tune, at least she's unironically really funny. But the diddler just takes me out. So I guess that's a silver lining here. Maybe? Anyway, again, all of this is speculative, given that nobody has come forward to confirm anything. But regardless, what we do know definitively is that Justin Bieber was exposed to this lifestyle at a very young age, and all the chaos and drama and nonsense that went along with it. We know that a lot of that revolved around drugs and alcohol, and you have to assume that some of that revolved around sex and inappropriate relations and whatnot, because again, if we're basing this off of the experiences of other young people in the acting industry particularly, I just really don't see why it's that big of a mental stretch to assume this has been happening in the music industry as well. Opportunistic, disgusting people are everywhere, so this wouldn't be shocking to me. I'll say here as well that there are a ton of additional allegations and accusations towards Sean Combs and Justin Bieber and his treatment, and I haven't included them in this video for two primary reasons. The first being, if I did, we would just, there's a lot of them and we would run out of time and this video would be 1,000 years long. But number two is because it's really hard to verify any of this information. And a lot of this information is not verified. It's speculative. And so I don't want to include things that are like too off base, if you know what I mean. I will say that the Sean Combs Diddy rabbit hole is incredibly deep and incredibly gross, and a lot of the lawsuits that have been filed against him do include references to household names and celebrities that most of us would probably know, and go into detail about the things that Sean Combs either did to them or the things that they did, and it's all it makes me lose hope in humanity a little bit. Ultimately, I think regardless of the legitimate criticism that can be thrown at Justin Bieber as an adult, and despite the group of people who will always view him through the lens of a spoiled pop star, it's very evident that he had a very, very challenging time as a teenager and was surrounded by all these people who caused him an enormous amount of pain and suffering. Just like how Hollywood failed so many child stars, the music industry failed Justin Bieber. And unfortunately, we're realizing all of this just a little bit too late. I'm sure as more information about Sean Combs comes to light, we'll get a clearer picture, hopefully, about some of the goings-on, not only with Justin Bieber, but with other people, or maybe honestly, we'll never know at all. But what is clear, as of now, is that whatever Justin Bieber had to do or had to be exposed to in order to reach this level of fame certainly wasn't worth it. And in the end, and on a positive note, it seems that he is prepared and willing to move forward and past his past. Now on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder to check out Fume using the link in the description. When you do and you use code Sydney, you'll get these cute little free toppers when you buy a journey pack. Now I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you of the opinion that Justin Bieber was exposed to a horrible bunch of things that we will probably never know about? Are you somebody who thinks, well, he's a pop star, this is kind of just par for the course? Do you feel bad for him? Do you not feel bad for him? Do you think that this issue is being blown out of proportion? What do you make of the Sean Combs side of things with the very little that we discussed here? Is he a bad guy? Is he misunderstood? Is there something else going on behind the scenes that we probably don't know about? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you would like to see more of me and more of this kind of content, feel free to subscribe to the channel, as well as leaving this video a like and a comment, because I do read the majority of them and I really like hearing your feedback. If you have any video suggestions or ideas, feel free to let me know. I do have a master list of them and I like to pick them out every so often and make them. But in the interim, I will see you wonderful pretty people in the next video.